Hi, welcome Henrique to a new episode of Smooth Operators Guide by Live Talks. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners?
So my name is Henrique. I lead our growth team at Rose. That's rows.com. And growth really is for us, it's marketing, it's activation, it's user onboarding, and then it's also all of the things that touch on data. And Rose is a modern spreadsheet. So it's really an Excel or Google Sheets competitor with a few special sparkles on top of it. You can pull data from any marketing and sales source. You can transform the data with AI, and then you can share it as a beautiful report. And yeah, we're recently crossed a million users, and we're basically on this path of building a better spreadsheet for people.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'm a Rose fan myself. I mean, Rose looks a lot like Google Sheets on steroids, right? Like it's like superpowers. And I remember meeting at SAS Open the last time, right? And
Hmm.
you were talking about how, like, you gave a speech over there. You were talking about how your landing page kind of being not like a typical landing page, but more like the product itself, increase the conversions like crazy. If you don't mind, can you talk a little bit about that for our listeners and how did that experiment go? What were your metrics
Hmm.
that you tracked? How did you even plan that entire thing?
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the boldest experiments that we did on the marketing and growth side. I think it comes back to the explanation of what Rose is. We really are a full spreadsheet replacement. We're really, really good with reporting and analysis, but at the end of the day, a spreadsheet can be used for a lot of things. And so we face this dilemma of most of our customers at any given moment in time have a tab open with another spreadsheet that is not Rose, right? They have a Google Sheets tab open or they have Excel open. And so, how do we lower the barrier for them to give the product a try, be in their natural environment, and then take it from there? And so, we had this discussed this a few times. Why do we need a homepage? Why don't we do an experiment where we drop the homepage and people land directly on the product and we onboard them there? Because a spreadsheet, if you think about it, is a type of product that people are already familiar with. They know what the grid is. If you use a spreadsheet, you know what the formulas are. Rose is 100% compatible with all of that. But then our job is to show you our special powers, how easy it is to pull data, how can you embed a chart in Notion, these sort of things. And so we thought, okay, why don't we do an experiment where instead of rose.com on desktop being a marketing site, you just land people on the product. They're all in sandbox accounts. We don't ask them for their email address or anything like that. And then there are a few gated parts of the experience where you need to sign up to do this. If you want to share your spreadsheet, you need to sign up. If you want to embed, you need to sign up. But everything else is open. You can connect to Notion, you can connect to GA4, you can pull data from OpenAI, all of that is open. And that's what we did. Right? So from one day to the other, the homepage was the product, nothing else. And then we've basically iterated on the onboarding experience on that. So to your point, what happened a little bit to our surprise is that not only more people used the product, this was obvious because we were going to land them on the product, but actually the conversion rate to sign up tripled. We were in like 8, 7, 9% of desktop people converted to now like 26, 25, 27, which is pretty insane if you think about it, right? Like 1 in 4 people who land on the website sign up.
Right. Wow, that's like really crazy numbers, right? So, like just to drill down a little bit more on that, you told that like your signups doubled, and what happened to your like free user to paid user conversion? Like, how did you nudge that, and how did you even track? What was your activation points? Like, if
Yeah.
you don't mind sharing that.
So the activation rate obviously tanked, right? Because now that just the funnel is much larger and a lot of these people have a lot lower intent. They just happen to land on the product. They are really not qualified and now you just drop them there. So I think at the high level activation rate really went down, but net activated users, which is what you really care about at the end of the day, how many more people are activated at the end of each week, I think went 3 or 5x, something like this. Like it was really transformative uh, on that front. What we also saw is that the people who experience the sandbox and then sign up are more likely to be activated because they already did part of that work in their sandbox environment. And an interesting KPI that I always like to share is our number one North Star metric is Power Workspaces. So, how many people use the product 3 days or more in the last 7? At any given day, like 5 to 10% of our power users are sandbox users. So, we have hundreds of people who use the product 2 days, 3 days, 4 days before they sign up. Right? So, they are really already like fully on the spreadsheet using it.
Interesting, interesting, pretty interesting. Just going So, I mean, you were not like a growth expert from the beginning, right? Like you were kind of working for the government, and then you jumped into growth. So, like, how did you like? What is the shift like? Why did you have the interest? What attracted you towards growth and marketing? What was the
Yeah.
change?
When I left the university, I did consulting for a while. So basically, working in
Right.
different countries in the world doing consulting for manufacturing companies. But then during university, I had been a little bit in contact with the tech community in Porto and in Portugal. And so after a few years in consulting, I decided to make the move first to product. It was the most adjacent, like product slash project management was the most adjacent part to consulting. And then when I went to roles, we were really pre-product. So we had like a basic alpha version with essentially nobody on it. And then I was the first PM. We were building out the product, building out the product teams. And then eventually I was talking with customers a lot. The team that I was working on built the first data pipeline that we had. And then it just became natural that when we wanted our first full growth, full marketing person, that I just made the switch. So at the end of the day, it was quite natural. Like if you try to trace it back, maybe you can come up with a story, but the reality is that it just happened like day to day.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So you did join roles, like you mentioned, pre-product, right?
Mm-hmm.
And product-led growth is all the buzz these days. Everyone wants to do product-led growth, product-led growth. But what do you think, like, when was it, do you think you started PLG at Rose? Was it from day one? Or was it like after a certain inflection point? What is that inflection point like?
Yeah.
So like, so that new entrepreneurs can actually like take some lessons from that.
I think our story is a little bit different than I would say most other starts because we spent 4 years, I would say, just basically building out the product with the wait list up. People would sign up, we would onboard them manually, etc. I think one really important variable is how much money do you have in the bank? Like, are you able to even do this for how long until you have to turn on monetization? And then are you a very broad tool? Are you very like a vertical tool and that you can monetize with a clear ICP right away? I think our strategy is not the one that I would advise to most people because obviously you really just need to have raised good amounts of money from VCs. And luckily Torben and Umberto, the two founders, raised plenty of money for us to get started in these first few years. Um, but it was, I think we always said that if we wanted to build a spreadsheet really to compete with Excel and Google Sheets, then it needed to be product led first, even if we weren't using these words. Because again, the alternative is everybody already has a spreadsheet with them. We really want to try this land and expand mode and build it out from there. I think there are like many ways to be successful. You can be successful with a narrow ICP, with a less narrow ICP. I think we could have built a spreadsheet in many different ways, but we just wanted to build it like this, I think, from day one.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, of course. Like, not a lot of us like, or not a lot of products in general can go like PLG or like self-serve from day one. That's also there. But again, like you mentioned, depends on the side of product, the sort of market they are trying to target. Is it enterprise? Is it like bottoms up, top down? It depends on that. Now again, yeah, sure.
I think it's, how do you imagine the growth motion to be? How will you become a very big company? Is it that you'll become big because people, when they sign up, they share it with somebody else within their team and you want to go from there? Is it that people, when they sign up, they share the product outside the organization? Is it that the product becomes big, not because there's a big sharing motion, but because you start already top down with a big team? Is it that like people create content who then share with other people? Depending on what your hypothesis for your growth motion is, I think you start building your business in a different way. For us, it is if we really are to be a very good spreadsheet and a good spreadsheet for reports and analysis, naturally people should share analysis with other people to get approval, to get feedback, to show them to stakeholders. And so there should be some virality from that. And so it should be okay that you start with one user, make them really happy. They build a spreadsheet, and this becomes the vehicle to get virality inside the team or outside the team. And that's kind of the hypothesis that we've been running, like going over. And then maybe you can increase top of funnel by having more people inviting other people, by creating content that these creators, these spreadsheet creators discover to then build spreadsheets. Then like there's a few different motions that you can build. There aren't 100 different ways of growing, but there are maybe two or three.
I can't agree more, 100%. Because like whenever we choose like different channels to grow, it's going to be that 20% of the channels that's going to give the 80% of the growth. That's usually
Mm-hmm.
the case, right? So now again, drilling down into that, what is your 20%? What is that that has worked really really well for growth? Is it like Rose? Is it like content, or is it like influencer marketing, or what is that, or is there no
Yeah.
20%?
No, there is. We're actually right now in discussions of additional acquisition channels because this thing that I told you, 0 to 1 million users, 99% was word of mouth. Okay. And then there are benefits to this, which is obviously very low CAC, people talk about you, people discover you, etc. But then the downsides of it is that it's quite unpredictable. Like it's hard to make a model to because at some point you might have less word of mouth. Then it's also word of mouth often to a product like us means people with lower intent, because if someone talks about us on Twitter or TikTok, it doesn't mean that this person wants to build a report with Google Analytics 4 and Facebook ads and then convert to a team and then share it, etc. And so on top of word of mouth, we layer content. So if you go to rose.com/tools/calculators, we've built basically landing pages with helpful tools for people to like Facebook engagement rate calculator or how to do a regex expression. And then we bridge that down to the product and then people go from there. And then also we use the templates a lot in the blog for other type of like jobs to be done like content. So if you're looking for a Google Analytics 4 country report, you should land on our template page. It's a landing page, sign up. A little bit like maybe not as much as Canva, but more like an Airtable like experience where you have
Right.
these narrow jobs that you discover it. And then the blog is good to wrap up industry like themes, so what are the top AI tools for marketing, things like this, or how do you check backlinks in GA4, themes that are adjacent to the spreadsheet, adjacent to our ICP, to our reporting, and do from that. Yeah, so I hope that 80% continues to be word of mouth and virality of people sharing spreadsheet with other folks, and then we layer in maybe one or another growth loop to kind of scale this in a predictable way within a narrower ICP.
Interesting. I feel that is like a clear trend here. It looks a lot like programmatic SEO, right? Like how Zapier did it back in the day. So when you guys launched so many landing pages, and I remember seeing you talk about it a lot in LinkedIn as well. This is for sure work for you guys. You have somehow cracked that engine. So how did it start? Did you go ahead with like just one or two tools to start with? And how did you identify these tools? Was it through the users or through like some sort of signaling on Reddit communities, or how was it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one thing that you need to think about it is what are your strengths as a product, okay? And one of our strengths as a product is that we are a spreadsheet. People want to do computations on spreadsheets. They want to do models. They want to do calculations, and often they go online to look for these types of calculations, like how do I calculate the aspect ratio? How do I calculate my engagement rate and things like that? And we have a really viral feature which is called embeds, which is you can take a table or a chart and embed it as an iframe somewhere else, which means that we can build landing pages very easily with calculations by using embeds, by embedding embeds into the landing pages. And so we started with an hypothesis. We did a little bit of keyword research on what type of calculators made sense. And we had a few users actually asking us for these things. Like, why don't you guys create a calculator for this? Why don't you create a template for that? And so we took a few of these ideas from customers and our keyword research, did maybe 30 calculators in a couple of weeks. Again, because it was like the calculator itself is a spreadsheet, and then we just had copy explaining what the calculator is, what are the variables, examples, etc. And so we launched them really quickly. They started to rank, and then we just kind of doubled down on the calculators and then launched tools. um, yeah, on top of that, obviously I think you need to think about if this is a chart where on one axis is the conversion rate to sign up, on the other axis is audience, you can build content in different positions. So these tools and calculators have very, very large audiences, but then very low conversion rate to sign up. Right? If you're looking for a regex generator and you land in our landing page, going from there to signing up to the spreadsheet is quite far. But on the flip side, if you're looking for a TikTok analytics dashboard, it's probably a much narrow audience, but then the conversion rate is much higher. I think you need to position yourself in different artifacts of content along this kind of axis. So that's how it came about. Yeah. And we're actually doubling down. We're hiring now. We have a working student who is basically spending the summer just building more calculators and more tools because we do see value. And quite often, the what's also interesting, depending on how you go about it, all the other calculator landing pages are typically a really poor experience because people build these pages and then they put a lot of ads on it to try to monetize
Right.
these calculators. And we don't want to do this. For us, it's straightforward. We want you to get the calculation, have value, and then at some point, maybe after your fifth visit, you sign up. That's fine for us. We don't need to monetize on that directly. I think I can't hear you.
Hello.
Okay, now I can.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I think my mic was off. So you wanted like this is a completely brand play, right? Like you wanted to keep rows on top of people's minds at all point of time. You're not really looking at conversions when you say calculators or any of these utility tools. So why calculators specifically? Why not like something else? Because you mentioned you even made like templates. What about templates? Is templates not like working so well? How do you track this? Like, what is your metric like? Is it
Yeah.
signups? Is it paid users? Is it just traffic?
Yeah, good question. Our key event in GA4, let's put it that way, is in connecting and integration. Right? Because for us, it's a very good predictor of upgrades and later on retention. And so this is what we really want to do, which is like per week, this is what we track. Per week, each of these artifacts of products, templates, blog, calculator, tools, how many integration connected events are they bringing us per week? Like how many users that are connecting their first integration? And that's really what we're going after. It's not traffic, it's not increasing the domain ranking, is that. But we just think that there are different ways of going about it. And the templates are one way, again, lower audience, higher conversion rate. And then others are the tools and the calculators. And it's a mix, but all of them should converge to people signing up and connecting integration. This is really what we're going after. It's just that for some, it takes 100 visits, for some 10 visits, for some might be 1,000 visits.
Right. So I'm just assuming from whatever you just told, connecting integrations is the activation point, right? If they connect to the
Active
integration, they're probably going to come back.
activation is a little bit more it's a little bit down the line than connecting integration, but the connecting integration is a good predictor. For us, an activation is the way we measure it is viewing or editing a spreadsheet. You can think about it as one data point or one event. When you reach 15 of those, then we say you're activated. So like you saw slash edited at least 15 spreadsheets or a spreadsheet 15 times, right? 15 viewing events, let's say. But what we know is that if you connect an integration, the likelihood that you're going to be activated is much higher, because like you put something of value inside your spreadsheet, then maybe you create a chart, maybe you share it somewhere, and then this gets you going in the product.
Right. When you said 15 times, you were very specific about it. Is 15 the actual number, or else it's fine? You do not tell the actual number.
No,
But then
15 is the
how?
actual number. We did multiple analysis, right? We had different thresholds, different types of actions that were activations. We
Right.
did things like, is using a formula, should it be one action for activation? Is it editing a spreadsheet? Is it inviting? Is it creating an element inside the spreadsheet? And then is it 5 actions, 10 actions, 15 actions? When do we see a big inflection point? And it's around that, like we settle on 15. Obviously, if it was 12 or 11, it would have been kind of the same thing, but that's what we are. That's the activation metric. 15 actions. When you
I
reach
have to
them, we
ask.
say you're
Yeah.
activated.
I have to ask this. So, are you using rows.com yourself to track all these metrics, or are you using like a product tracking tool? Like, how do you track all this? Like, because you mentioned about activation, you mentioned about page views, you mentioned about conversions, so many different metrics that you're tracking. There are KPIs that are obviously not stars as well. So, how are you doing this? Are there
Yeah,
multiple tools? Are there like a single centralized dashboard? How
yeah.
is that?
Everything for us ends up in a spreadsheet because we can use rows for all of this, and because honestly, I think this is part of our thesis. A spreadsheet or a doc are the only tools I think that both the CEO and the intern can understand. Okay, like that you can communicate to an intern or to the CEO and they can play with it. But our stack is collecting the events. We use segment.com for that, or directly through the Google Cloud platform, because some events just have too much intensity and just Segment doesn't cope well with that. And then we have all our ETLs, etc. Everything is on BigQuery. This is our data warehouse, and then we query it all through rows, because with rows you can write a SQL query to import data from BigQuery. And because with rows we connect to GA4 or Facebook ads or all the other tools, and we can centralize the analysis and share the reports directly there. And obviously, because as using that, we also use the product, we see places to improve, we kind of find new use cases, find new ways to make templates, all of that.
Interesting. Wow. You mentioned that you can connect Facebook ads and Google ads and other campaign activities in general through rows as well. Is that
Mm-hmm.
again through like some sort of code, or is that like an inbuilt integration? How is that?
All of them built by us. Like, we've built all of these integrations one by one. We have more than 50 now. Things like
Right.
Stripe, Notion, etc. We've built them all. Yeah.
Interesting. That's really crazy. I mean, I know the difficulty of it because we ourselves are building it right now.
Yeah.
So
You
that's
know
really
what we
cool.
found is there are other libraries and other services, but at least what we have found is that most people, especially inside a spreadsheet, it only works if the interface is really simple. And so oftentimes, like we have to do things like automatically paginate the API, changing the names of the fields from the APIs, reordering it differently, like things that are really specific to making the experience great. And none of these providers, at least that we've worked with or tried, make that for us. Maybe they do and we don't know, but we just found that the best way to have a uniform experience that millions of people can use, it has been for us to build it. I think what will happen next year is we'll open up the marketplace for other people to build their own integrations with some guidelines from us, kind of like what Zapier does, right? Other people can contribute to it. And then there will be some sort of a review process that we can accept or not.
Interesting, interesting. I mean, I got asked, like, I have like two more marketing specific questions, right? So one of them is that I've always been a big fan of Reddit, and I've always been like thinking about. I spend a lot of time on Reddit thinking about, like, especially in subreddits when it really matters to the product you're building, and understanding how the users are being super candid. Because in Reddit, people are very, very candid. I mean, we know how candid they are. It's
Mhm.
as raw as it gets, right? It's the front page of the internet. And I remember reading about something you did on r/beautiful. I don't want to explain the entire process for the audience right now, but I want to hear it from you.
What we did with Reddit, right? Yeah. So typically we've used our social media accounts, I think, in a very traditional way. We post product updates, things that are new. We try to share interesting things that people are building, etc. And it had come up a couple of times in user calls that people actually ask us, are you guys active on Reddit? Are you using the Data is Beautiful subreddit, which is a
Right.
subreddit where people sell charts and visualizations? And our charts are one of the features that people praise the most. Right? They really like the interface, the way they look. You can export it as a beautiful image. You can add an avatar. You can do a lot of things from it. And so we thought, okay, if this is a community that is only like really wants to do charts and visualizations, can we like hack it or grow through it? And basically, what we did, I think, in 60 or 90 days, we posted like once every other day on Data is Beautiful, a chart about an interesting or thought provoking topic with a rows chart with a little bit of attribution, like built with rows, like here's what it is, etc. And we had millions of views on these images, really. And our karma points exploded. I don't know, I maybe have like 10 or 15 or 20,000 karma points. So it really exploded within the Data is Beautiful community. But it didn't really translate much to acquisition, to rows. Because what we found is, yes, you post an image, but especially
Right.
before, now you can actually add a link. But before it was really only an image. And so it was too far from that to actually converting to the spreadsheet. So what we would do is we put a spreadsheet with the image. The first comment, you have to say what is the tool, because it's one of the guidelines from Reddit. What is the tool? And we would link to the spreadsheet. These were public spreadsheets. We had a few hundred duplications, but it really didn't move the needle. But it was really interesting because we could grow very fast within this subreddit. I think the average post had something like 100,000 views, something like this, and we still do it from time to time. But yeah, but it was really hard to correlate with either referrals from Reddit or spikes in activity on the website. There was very, very narrow. Looking back, I think we actually could have done something a little bit different, which is mix this organic content on Reddit with ads on the Data is Beautiful feed. And the ads could
Interesting.
be more performative or performance based, like telling people about the benefits of the spreadsheet. And then
Right.
the organic content was just being top of mind. Because we had a lot of people saying, I've seen your charts, our existing users, right? I've seen your charts popping up on my feed on Reddit. So clearly there was something there, but not enough for us to keep investing on it much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of the few guys who actually were able to hack like a subreddit and somehow see some level of growth. I don't know how much of it like actually converted. Like you mentioned, it didn't much, but
Yeah.
but that's a really really fun experiment. I love such like unobvious tactics, right? Because all of us are like constantly just posting on webinars, social posts. Like everyone's using the social media the same way, but then this is one of those things that is like completely different. You're just like reverse engineering the way you're thinking about things in general. And another thing I remember was like another bold campaign, right? Like I remember one of your marketing campaigns where Rose went bold and rented a billboard space close to Microsoft headquarters and put up a sign that read, like, "Dear Microsoft, your spreadsheet has been added for 36 years. It's time to retire." Like, what is the logic behind it? I know this is super bold, and was it successful? Like, I'm sure, like, that is like a pretty huge campaign, right?
No, I think all of it together was maybe less than $2,000, I think, to run it, because we only ran it for social. I think the fact that we're talking about it maybe 2.5 years later, I think proves it was good ROI. This was the logic, right? Again, we're competing against these giants. Our brand is a lot about this theme of us versus them, us versus Excel, us versus Google Sheet, and so we can play a little bit with that theme. And so we thought, why don't we do actual billboards close as we can to Microsoft, as close as we can to Google, with this kind of fun, provocative message, just opposing that they're old and we're modern, and then we'll use this to social media. And so what we did is there's this company called Blip Billboards where you can buy digital billboards. So they are on the interstate highways in the US or in Times Square, but they're fully digital. And the fact that they're fully digital, it means that you can do everything online and you can book specific slots for the ads to run. So
Right.
we picked, let's say, 3 to 4 p.m. in this highway close to Microsoft and here in San Jose or whatever we could find close as possible to Google. And then we hired a couple of people on TaskRabbit to go there at that time and take pictures of the billboards. And this was it. It was actually, I made a mistake and I told the guys the wrong time to go to the billboards the first time. So I actually had to rehire them, but it just proves that it's inexpensive. And so they did that. They took the pictures and then we added them slightly the pictures because maybe it was too shaded or the angle wasn't right, etc. And then we did a teaser campaign or a campaign on social media saying, should we do this? Have we already done this, etc. And that was it. And it generated, obviously, people had, I think, a good laugh or a good time with this. They shared a lot. It actually spun. We were in the cover of Forbes in Portugal and I think some other countries because of it. We had like an article on Wired that the conversation started on Twitter between a journalist and Umberto a little bit because of these things that we were doing. And it just went somewhat viral on social and a lot of people noticed it. Still today, we have people who sign up and say that they remember us from this campaign, right? And so we've tried to, from time to time, do these sort of brand things. We also did one now in April Fools, and we tried to play around with the brand a bit.
Interesting. Uh, right, Henry. Like, I mean, obviously, you are going after campaign that are going viral, right? Is it something that you plan for it to go viral? Because all of our expectations are like for every campaign to go viral. Or is it something that is just like purely you just want to go outside the box and think differently? What is your planning strategies are like for these?
Um, I think it's, we've been lucky to, in different levels, go somewhat viral in some communities. And I think it always comes down to, I think it was Seth Godin that has this book called The Purple Cow. And he says something like, if you see a purple cow around, it's remarkable. And if you think about it, remarkable really means making a remark about. So something that you'd make a remark about. And we kept coming back to these ideas of how can we build something that is within our brand, makes sense for our product, that people would make a remark about. Another interesting example is when we launched our integration with Notion. So we have a really good integration with Notion that you can import your database from Notion into rows and then crunch the numbers in rows, maybe make a pivot table, maybe make an analysis and maybe embed it back. Okay. And we thought, okay, how do we distribute this integration? If we just say that we launched integration, maybe a few people will like it, but how do we make a dent within the Notion community? We have a very good relationship with the Notion team, but we wanted to do something a little bit special. Right? At the same time, we know that the Notion community loves the Notion avatars, right? If you know it,
Yeah, of
the
course.
Notion
Yeah, yeah,
style
yeah. It's
avatars,
pretty
people love
famous.
it,
Yeah.
quite famous. And so we thought, okay, why don't we hire a designer? Okay, and when we launch the integration, we say for every person that comments and shares, we'll design an avatar for you. Okay, like we'll take the picture from your LinkedIn or Twitter, and we'll design the avatar for you.
Wow.
And I think, and we said you have 48 hours to do it. After that, we don't have to do more avatars, or 28, 24 hours or something. We did 500 something avatars in those 2 days. Right? 300 something avatars, like hundreds of avatars to people, because the campaign went somewhat viral. Like it was within our ACP, so Notion people wanted an avatar, right?
Right.
They then the influencers within Notion also wanted to do this because it was a way for their audience also to get value from it. It was our target audience, so people who use Notion very likely also use a spreadsheet, and it just gave value to the final person. So like if I commented or shared, I got my really nice Notion avatar. I'm likely to try the product at least. And yeah, I think we had like around 500 likes like on Twitter, and then another 500 on LinkedIn, something like this. We did a few hundred avatars between our internal design team and the freelancer that we hired, and we ran this for a couple of days, right? And I think it's just a way to thinking differently for these campaigns, with again with a very low CAC.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, yeah, obviously AI is elephant in the room right now, right? Like everyone's going after AI, ChatGPT, Claude, different platforms. So, what is your take on AI, and how are you, if you are using, how are you using AI in growth and marketing efforts? How much of it do you think is going to change in the near future, or whatever, right? Like, what is your take on that?
It does seem that we are in this um, like internet-like moment of 1995, right? We have this thing here, it's already affecting a little bit of our day. We're not sure if it's going to replace a lot of things, going to increase the number of tasks that we do, but like for sure this is going to be impactful. I think about it in two ways. In one way, as we're building rows, AI is being more and more central. We did the first experiment in I think December of 2022 when the API of ChatGPT 3 came out. We built our first integration with OpenAI that basically had one formula. You could do equals ask underscore OpenAI and put a prompt that could refer a cell and get data back. Again, people really liked it. And so we've really built out a very good OpenAI integration that doesn't require API keys. You can just connect through us. And then we have a bunch of simple formulas like equals find fact, equals sentiment analysis, for these types of things. So clearly we see that the way people use spreadsheets is changing and is going to change completely with AI. What we imagine that we're working towards is the cell can almost be a prompt. You can tell the cell what you want to do. Maybe it will use AI, will convert back to a formula, it will give you the result, you go from there. And then the second stage was, okay, what people will really want to do with AI and the spreadsheet is to build analysis. Right? And so we launched our AI analyst, which was probably the feature that went most viral from rows ever, which is basically a way to have like a conversational analysis with your table, like create pivot tables, etc. We had maybe I think 30 million views on social media within the first 7 days, and I think 50,000 people signed up in the first week, something like that, when we launched the AI. And then on the day-to-day, we use it a lot. I think a few examples help us write SQL queries. Like I do it a lot, and Alvaro, our data engineer, uses it a lot. If we're, for example, writing copy for the template pages of templates, we use it a lot. Like we give it the bullet points that we want, help us create a draft, iterate from there. It just, I think, speeds up getting to a good draft on content. I think this is how we use it. The only way that we were able to build so many tools and calculators was with AI. Not that AI writes the text, but AI gets us a draft to the text from the ideas of a bullet point. So we use
100%.
that definitely
Yeah.
a lot. And we even use it in more creative ways. So I think this is a cool example that other product people will appreciate. Our CMS has all of the information of our functions and our formulas. So if you do equal sum, all of that information, the example, the description, the parameters, etc., all of that is on our CMS. And all of it is like JSON structure. We use OpenAI now. Let's say that we develop a new formula like query or sort. We use it to generate the examples that we want to show in the product in the correct JSON formula format so that we can copy paste it to the CMS, like doing things like that to help us speed up internal tools and the content and then the customers see as well. So there's just, I always have, I think, ChatGPT open at some point. I was even opening it now to see how I was using it. Like, yeah, correct spelling on tweets. I mean, that's just an infinite way of using these things.
100%. I was recently talking with someone. Uh, like he kind of wrote an article on Henrique's newsletter as well. Just gonna pull that out. I kind of forgot exactly what was his. But yeah, there it is. It's Mike Taylor, right? Like, so Mike Taylor, he is kind of like a prompt engineer, and he has done like a lot of stuff. And I was interviewing him for like, I think he was a previous guest before you,
Hmm.
like last week, and he was talking about like how AI is really, really killing it, like helping a lot, like especially for product managers and product growth people. And I was like, what is the thing that kind of differentiates from a normal person to a prompt engineer, right? So his thing was that all of us are kind of using ChatGPT at the ChatGPT interface. That there is another interface, which is the API interface, which is the playground, where you can go and then you can tweak more stuff and then you can make it sound less and less like AI and more like human. I was like, wow. So this is the game changing experience, right? uh, that is for sure like extremely extremely valuable for anyone who's trying to build fast. And the future looks like you don't need like huge teams, you just need like nimble small teams who can create like a lot of difference, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. What I think will happen, I've been thinking about this a little bit, which is with the emergence of AI in other fields as well. So clearly it's helping us in copy and text. It's going to help
Right.
us write ads or look for, like, maybe do the search on our behalf. It's going to help us create video. I think the last thing that that you'll be able to attribute to a human are things like this, like, you're recording a podcast with somebody else and you can really see their faces, or you're like self-recording how you're using the product and showing a template. These things are really going to be very human and continue to be very human. But the more you see, like, the email marketing that you'll receive, the outbound emails, the social media posts on text, I think more and more of that will be indistinguishable from AI. Yeah. But you, like, turning on your camera, talking a bit, showing stuff, it's going to be the most human thing in marketing that we might have in the next few years.
I hope so. So, I mean, just talking about that sales in general, you were just talking about demo and then like outbound emails and stuff, right? So, I want to understand right now, like since you told Bros started with PLG from day one, do you have any sales motion at all? Do you have any SDRs in your team at all? Do you guys even do outbound, or is it completely organic, completely inbound? If you do, then who is that you're doing
Yeah.
outbound to get customers like enterprise or outside?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right now, we don't do any outbound sales, or we also don't have any SDR. We're
Right.
discussing if we should hire this or not. We're doing maybe, like, probably starting a project with an agency to start that. What we do is through customer success, basically identifying high potential accounts, either based on their email domain or their activity in the product, and then get conversations from there. And I think just to work on that land and expand motion with accounts that have higher potential or that are already using the product a lot, and seeing how can we get them to use it in a different way, get more value from it. That we do a lot. What we also do is, depending on your initial activity in the product and your email address, we might send you an outbound email to get a conversation going from Torben, from our COO. And that's kind of about it for now. I think it's inevitable that we'll have salespeople, just like all of these big PLG companies have salespeople. But for now, I think we're still ironing out the funnel on the PLG motion, and so I think we still have a lot of work to do there. But I wouldn't say it's I think it's likely that in the next, let's say, 12, 18 months, we might hire our first salespeople to get us some repeatable customers within a specific niche that we can attack.
Interesting. Yeah. Uh, that is for most of the product companies these days. Is to start small, have the PLG motion, nail that, and then get SDRs, because having SDRs in the beginning is good, but then I think you guys are doing it the right way. That's just a that's just a great feeling. I have like
Yeah.
final rapid
Well,
fire round. Sorry.
yeah.
Please go ahead.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. Uh, cool. So, yeah, cool. So the rapid fire round, like there is like it's broken down into two parts. One is the tools, and the other is the metrics. So, rapid fire rounds with tools, right? What is your Swiss Army knife, like in your tool stack?
Rows, obviously, right? Because as a growth person, everything ends up or starts with
Right.
data. So obviously, I use a lot of the spreadsheet. A tool that I really love to use is called Screen.studio, which is, I think, from an indie developer. It's basically a way for you to. We do a lot of product demos on our social media, and the challenge is always the product demos look okay on desktop, look really shitty on mobile. and he did like basically a screen recorder that automatically zooms in, zoom out. You can add some padding, you can make it look nicer. So I use that a lot, several times a week. Okay. Now I've been using more and more vid.io, right? vid.io, because once I record these videos, I want to add like subtitle, for example. So two or three things, and I need like small editing tools on top of that. And then for all the internal communication, we use Notion. And so I think my days are mostly between a spreadsheet in rows, Slack, Notion, and then these comms tools I use a lot, Screen.studio and now vid.io. I think that is maybe, if I'm not forgetting anything, like 80% of 90% of my tools.
Right. If there is any one like less known superstar, like the one you just mentioned, like Screen Studio, like
Yeah, I
what
think
is
that's it.
that one? Okay.
No, I think this is it, Screen.studio. I think anytime I post a video like this, I get at least one person asking, what tool did you use to record that? Which I think for them is just a great viral loop. And then the business model is also interesting because it's like a one-off subscription that you can use for a few people on your team. So I really like to advertise that one.
Oh, yeah,
Still
I
under the
use
radar.
Screen Studio as well. Great tool,
Okay.
really, really great tool.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about
So
it here, so
yeah, yeah, exactly right. Moving on to metrics. What is a metric that you track every day? Like you open your screen, then you want to look at it, and how do you do it as of today?
Power Workspaces, this is really the one that I care the most about. And what I have is like a Power Workspace report, which is basically a list of the workspaces that have used the product 3 days or more in the last 7. And then I have a SQL query connecting rows to BigQuery, refreshes every day, and then I just go there and I look at the list. And the list is enriched with a bunch of columns, like how many workspace members does this workspace have, what integrations do they use, how many charts they have. Nothing about what they have in the spreadsheet, but just metadata about how they're using the product. That one, I look at it every day. The other one that I might look every other day is conversions from content, because we're doing more and more content work, and so you can think about it like a chart, like per week or per day, that is stacking up the number of clicks and conversions from different content types, like from templates, from blog, from the calculators, from the tools, and then just see, okay, what recent content is working, performing better, where do we need to bet our horses on, like what's driving more conversions. Those are like the two things that I'm looking at most commonly. Yeah.
Right. So that is your day-to-day metric, and what is your one-off metric? Like how can I say? Like more like a thing that you track for like a quarterly or like a annual or even like a monthly basis, something like a North Star, which acts like a compass that you're going in the right direction.
Well, our compasses are ARR and the Power Workspaces, and so this is when we look at our dashboard on Mondays. These are the first two metrics that are on that dashboard, because these are the most important things. So, like, how is ARR evolving every week, and then are we growing or not growing the Power Workspaces, and by how much? These are really the things that are really important. And then I think the other one that we don't look every day, maybe it's like a weekly or monthly thing, is a look at the conversion funnel. So you can think about like a table that says how many new accounts in sandboxes, how many of them converted, how many of them connected the integration, how many of them used an integration, how many of them had errors, how many of them hit the paywalls to pay, how many of them upgraded, right? This table refreshed every week, just to see like if the improvements that we're doing are having any impact on this like onboarding activation funnel. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I mean, Rose recently raised a good 8 million euros fund, right? Like venture capital. So, what is the future of Rose like? What are your next plans? How are you guys going to expand more? And
I
what
think,
is your new market
yeah,
like? What is your
we are in the most exciting time in the company ever, I have to say, because we had raised a few rounds before, but they were all in product building mode. Was like, we need to prove that people are interested in this spreadsheet, we can build a good product from it, etc. Now with this round is all about go to market motion, right? Which is, we've proved the product, we have hundreds of customers already. Now how do we scale this to thousands of customers? How do we go from 1 million to 10 million people using the product? What are the right niches? What are the right upgrade triggers, etc.? And so this is, I think, what the future roles for us. Our thesis is we really want to be the simplest way to import, transform, and share data in a spreadsheet. Importing will continue to be around, a lot about integrations. doing more things like we did with the Chrome extension, where you can basically kind of get data from the web into a spreadsheet, allowing people to build their own integrations. You can think of it like that. Transforming, I think, it's going to be dominated by AI, different ways of really lowering the barrier and increasing the capabilities of people so that anyone can become a data analyst. And then just making the most enjoyable way to sharing a spreadsheet or an analysis and the report. And that might be taking parts of it and putting it in Notion. It might be sharing your something on a PDF. It might be sharing the link and it works beautifully on mobile, and just continuing to iterate on that experience. I think pretty convinced that this idea of a spreadsheet being a very democratic way for anyone in the company to look at data, I think still holds true. And then we just need to go as fast as we can in these three vectors, and something good will happen.
Solid. Really, really interesting. I'm looking forward to like the growth of Rose, and yeah, I used Rose in between. I'm going to continue using Rose. Uh,
Thank you.
any final thoughts, or like where can people find you? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? Or is it like a blog post, like a newsletter?
I'm very active on both LinkedIn and Twitter. So
Right.
a lot of it is sharing stories of Rose, how Rose is growing, what's struggling with, what are we using it for. So if you look up Henrique Cruz Rose, you'll find them. You'll find me on either. I think what I would challenge the people to do, especially if they're in growth and marketing, is go to their desktop, open rose.com, try the no homepage experience, and tell me what you think. Was it confusing? Did you see value from it? Did you understand what we're about? And just give me feedback. I'm Henrique at rose.com, really easy to find. And I'd love to hear from your experience from other growth and marketing people. Always looking to learn from them as well. Yeah, and that's it.
Fantastic, Henrik. Wow, that's one of the most action-packed, super fast, rapid-fire episode that we ever had. And
Okay.
thank you so much for joining.
No, thank you so much for having me.